Here are 15 of the biggest nerfs in Overwatch history, starting in chronological order. As I'm sure many of you have already figured out from Overwatch Classic, Widow was very broken on release of Overwatch. Basically, back in 2016, Widowmaker could animation cancel the recovery time when scoping back in, otherwise known as quickscoping. This basically turned Widowmaker into a headshot machine, and for obvious reasons, this got changed in June 2016. Among other things, her infrasight also got nerfed by 10%, and her gun also got weaker when it came to body shots. Widow back then could one-shot body shot Tracer or Zen, which as you can imagine was insanely powerful. Another hero that was drastically different to launch compared to how they are now, there was a point in time where Mercy had a near 100% pick rate. Now I'm not here to talk about her Resurrect ultimates, that's for a different day, but of course I'm here to talk about the Moth meta. Everyone's seen the clip a billion times over, but as you can see in this Muselt clip, Mercy could essentially resurrect 4 times with her reworked ultimates, which basically skyrocketed her pick rates across all ranks. That is how you know it's bad. It all came crashing down though on October 10th, 2017, where Valkyrie no longer resets or reduced the cooldown of Resurrect. It did give a bonus Resurrect charge, but that was later removed too, after Mercy still dominated during the start of the Overwatch League. Yet another support who dominated the game was of course Brigitte. Now I'm not gonna lie, it's very difficult talking about Brig nerfs because she's pretty much never been in a bad state. She was pivotal in GOATs, pivotal in Double Shield, pivotal in Dive, and now she's pivotal in the Juno Brig comps that we've been seeing. She's been historically that good. However, if I had to pin down one patch that negatively affected the playstyle of Brig, it would have to be when her bash could no longer stun through shields in December of 2018. The bash also got its damage reduced down to 5. The reason this was so impactful was that during the GOATs meta, it would basically guarantee a free shatter on the enemy team unless the Ryan got bubbled. I didn't want to include when Brig got a rework to essentially be less tanky and more of a support because she was still very good in this state. Another character that got nerfed alongside Brig in that December patch was also Doomfist. He was still a DPS back then, so he had no power block and instead had a combo focused kit centered around burst damage and burst mobility. This patch drastically reduced the air control of his uppercuts alongside the max range of his seismic slam, and targets hit by the slam don't lose air control while being pulled in. Pretty much all the big Overwatch content creators were talking about how bad of a nerf this was, because not only did this affect Doom's lethality, but a lot of his rollouts were just not doable now because of the slam range change. Brandito especially was known for his rollout series, and if you want to know about what happened to him, check out this video here. As we all know, the GOATs meta basically got killed due to 222 Roadhog, and another monstrous meta came out the dark, being Double Shield. The release of Sigma basically enabled this, and for those who don't know, he had a 1500 HP shield on release. So it's no surprise that in December of 2019, his shield HP got cut all the way down to 900 HP. It got nerfed even further, down to 700 HP in August of 2020. Of course, there's more to the story with Double Shield, as it was actually enabled by insane AoE healing instead of just pure shield health, but we'll get onto that very soon. Another sneaky nerf that was actually massive during the whole Double Shield era was the nerf to the stun on Ryan Shatter from 3 seconds down to 2.5. This might not sound like a lot, almost always guaranteed a swing, 5-strike combo. Now with the extra half a second gone, Shatter was only good for confirming kills on solo targets. Coupled with Brig Bash no longer stunning through shields, alongside that whole Double Shield meta going on, and not only was it near impossible to actually hit Shatter, but now if you did hit it, it wasn't that rewarding. Of course, Shatter is a lot better now than it was back then, but that's for another video. Another major nerf in 2020, which started killing the Double Shield meta, was the nerf to AoE healing in August 2020. Baptiste finally had his region burst healing halved from 150 down to 75, and his grenade ammo also got decreased down to 10 bullets. Not to mention, Brig also had her Inspire nerfed, with the total amount of healing being decreased from 130 to 90. She also had her base health cut to 150. Earlier in the year, Baptiste had his healing cut down from 60 to 50. All these nerfs were actually so harsh that they chose to partially revert them in October 2020, but obviously these weren't to last. The last major nerf in 2020 was to Orisa's Halt radius, which got decreased by 3 meters. Basically, Orisa's ult had such a big radius that it was super easy to do combos with Dynamite or even Hog Hook, which ushered in the aptly named pulled pork comp, where the Hog would just toss a hook straight at the Orisa ult. This basically killed that pulled pork comp in its entirety, as it was too inconsistent to land the ult around corners, and while a 3 meter decrease may not sound like a lot, it was an almost 70% decrease in the actual area. After that, in 2021, we had the Bull Zen meta, which didn't actually receive any major nerfs because of the introduction of Overwatch 2. And one of the heroes that fundamentally changed the game was of course Junkerqueen. In essence, she basically formed the dreaded Jolts comp, or Junkerqueen Goats, because of the sheer amount of overhealth she could grant teammates. The intriguing thing about this is that players hardly got to touch this version of Queen, as Overwatch 2 was still in beta, only for the pros to play. Because of this, I can't even find the official original patch notes that actually nerfed Queen. Despite this, you can see here how the allied bonus health granted got halved, the shout duration for allies got reduced to 3 seconds, and the cooldown got increased by a massive 4 seconds. It's no wonder that the Jolts comp basically died out after this, with Queen's power being a lot more in her rampage, knife, and her own sustain, instead of a commanding shout. The time of new heroes dominating the meta wasn't just to do with Queen though. We had a very similar stint with Kiriko, who pioneered an upgraded version of the looser Moira Winston comps that we saw from time to time. To say Kiriko was overtuned on release would be an understatement. She had it all in terms of the healing, burst damage, consistent damage, utility, ultimates, and mobility. In particular, because her ultimate was so broken, a lot of meta strategy was healbotting to farm Kitsune instead of splitting off and flanking. As a result, it's no surprise that in December of 2022, her Kitsune cost got increased by 10%, the movement speed bonus got decreased by 20%, and the cooldown bonus got decreased from 3 times to 2 times. She also got a healing nerf the month after, and while Kiriko did remain very strong, she was only picked in 2023 as a flanky, aggressive alternative to Brig. Another massive nerf in January 2023 was also to Hog, who basically got his one shot absolutely gutted. His hook damage got put in the shitter, targets would be an extra meter away after hooking them, and if that wasn't enough, his pellet damage got decreased by 10%. If you check the tier lists of content creators like CarQ, in the span of just 2 seasons, this change single-handedly made Hog go from S tier to D tier.
And he always has that one-shot hook threat you have to play around. He synergizes so well with Kiriko, who can cleanse any sort of CC thrown at him, and it also enables his whole Hog with all that move speed and attack speed from Kitsune Brush. Roadhog, he's gonna chill in D tier for both tier lists. I think that one-shot nerf at the end of Season 2 was bad. Like, initially players are like, it's bad, but maybe he's serviceable, but like, as time has gone on, it's clear how the other tanks are now, like, way better than him.
Now, I would talk about more nerfs in 2023, but it was actually a pretty diverse meta. That was until Mauga's release in December of 2023, who caused absolute mayhem in the Overwatch player base. Not only was he broken, but more importantly, his skill floor was so low that the average player could actually access his broken skill sets. It wasn't like Sojourn where you had to be good at the hero to get the one-shots. Mauga ended up being so broken that just a week from release, his damage got nerfed by 20%, his ultimate duration got nerfed by 20%, and the number of shots required to ignite a target increased by 50%. Some of these would be reverted, and obviously, as of the making of this video, Mauga is still meta, but that's for different reasons related to his stomp and his individual sustain, instead of his sheer damage outputs. A humongous nerf though, that we need to talk about more, is Moira getting a 25 HP nerf in June of this year. This patch was targeted towards nerfing mobile heroes, but including Moira in that was a big mistake. Arx, a top level Moira player, recently talked about how bad Moira is. Not just for this HP nerf, but also because of the DPS passive, which disproportionately affected Moira.
This one's a big problem, a very big problem. Considering all of the previous changes that Blizzard made, this one is a huge problem for Moira. As I mentioned earlier, Moira has to be in the ability danger zone. She's going to take damage. She's going to take a lot of damage. She needs sustain to do that. By not giving her the health pool for the sustain to take effect, the sustain's basically useless.
Nowadays, with Juno being in the game, Moira serves legitimately zero purpose.
You serve zero purpose.
Do let me know down below if you want me to make a separate video dedicated to Moira, because it is quite sad to see how gutted the hero is. Another significant nerf in that June patch was also to Sojourn. For the longest time, Sojourn dominated the Overwatch 2 meta with basically a one-shot in her railgun. But it wasn't until June of this year where that would finally come to an end, with the devs readjusting her power away from a one-shot railgun back into her SMG. They ended up reducing the minimum and the maximum damage numbers by 30 points, meaning Sojourn could only deal a max of 150 on her headshots. As compensation, Sojourn's SMG got a fire rate increase, and her overclock got a small buff too. However, this was definitely a nerf overall. With no one-shot, it persuaded people to choose Ashe as the dominant hit scan, or Widowmaker if they still wanted a one-shot. Not to mention, where Ashe wasn't optimal, Cassidy would be the next best option. She did get more compensation buffs over time, like gaining energy on the softer shots, but it seems as if the hit scan role as a whole has been pretty weak as of recent, considering the double flex DPS meta that we've been seeing. Before I finish off, just a quick coaching plug. If you want to get the best valued coaching on the market, click the top link in the description. Lastly, the biggest, most recent nerf we've had has to go to Sombra. Just a few days ago, Sombra could be permanently invisible, which was balanced out by Sombra being forced to exit stealth during her hack. Now, her stealth could only be triggered by using Translocator, which got a nerfed cooldown of 2 seconds. The big issue with these changes is that every aspect of Sombra did get nerfed. Her stealth, her hack, her ultimates, her Translocator. The only part that got buffed was her gun, which only did more damage to hack targets. Of course, Sombra did get her fair share of compensation buffs, like lowering the EMP cost, the Translocator cooldown, and the quickness of exiting and entering stealth. But I think it's safe to say that this was a rework that absolutely nobody asked for, while also making the character worse in terms of strength and hero design. That's it for the video. As always, if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and let me know any big nerfs that you think should have made the video. Until next time.